Hey everybody, it's Christian Buckley doing another MVP Buzz Chat, and I'm talking today with Alec. Hello.
Hello, how's it going?
That's going pretty well. And remind me, where are you based?
I am in Omaha, Nebraska.
Omaha. And it's been a while since I'm out there. I'll be out there this summer. I think I'll be driving through that area again, which is the last time I was there. But Alec, for folks that don't know you, who are you besides your first name? You've already said where you are, and what do you do?
Yeah, I am Alec Harrison. I am a Microsoft MVP in both Azure and AI. So dual focus there. Not really on purpose, kind of happen chance. And my day job is I do consulting. So I help people solve problems. And it just so happens to involve technology. Sometimes it doesn't, but say for the most part, it tends to do that.
So I have to say, it's like you said, it happened by happen chance. I don't think I've talked to any of the dual MVPs that I've interviewed about like how did you swing the dual MVP? People might be wondering what that process is about and what you have to do to maintain that. Does that change?
Yeah, I just got awarded the dual accreditation last year, so I don't know what the renewal process looks like there. My journey, I actually helped Microsoft staff some of their MVP booths or the expert panels at Microsoft Build, and they tended to be in the AI focus area.
Yeah.
The other thing was being an Azure MVP. I was just trying to keep up on the latest and greatest. And I don't know if you listen to anything Microsoft lately, everything is AI this, AI that,
I
AI
I've not
solution
I've not
technology.
noticed that, Alec.
So, just trying to keep up on the latest and greatest in Azure kind of forced me down the rabbit hole of AI, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, the latest thing in Azure is this thing called Azure OpenAI, and then it's AI Foundry, and then it's AI this, AI that. Even some of the low code offerings, Microsoft 365 Copilot or Copilot Studio, just trying to keep up on the new things because we're talking about some of the more latest and greatest things at clients when we talk cloud. It's kind of pushed me down that path of people have questions, so do I. I'll go and investigate them and then bring it back to user groups or different communities that I can help.
And I have a lot of people, as I'm sure you've had in the time you've been in the program, that come up and say, like, how did you become MVP? How could I become an MVP? One of the things I tell people, especially around a newer area, like there's so much that is AI focused that Microsoft is doing. It's like pick a lane, pick a product, go investigate and document it as you're learning and share what you're learning.
Mhm.
Like you can have somebody who is brand new in that technology area. You have to have baseline competency in some technology in different things to participate. I mean, here I'm a marketing guy, but I've been in tech my entire career. I've been a solution architect role and a product manager and things around building out software and SaaS solutions. But so I don't consider myself technical per se, but I still go in depth where I learn about it and teach
Mhm.
about, at least up to proficiency, administrative capability around something. But you can go in and document your path, start at zero, document your path, and very quickly become an expert. In fact, there's a company out of the UK where they hired an intern, like an 18-year-old kid who had never had experience and he just started learning the Power Platform and he's now teaching classes. It's like 2 years later and he's an expert at these things, but he documented it, blogged about it, created videos around it as he learned and so it's a great way to learn yourself, the new technology, but help people along that path as well.
Yeah, for sure. I'm big into the user group scene and just like helping the community. And I think that's one thing I tell people when they want to get into stuff, either the MVP program or speaking at a user group or community event is it doesn't take much for you to know more than the general population. So like what you might be doing every day that you think is just, oh, it's just like everybody who's in this vein, they obviously know X, Y, and Z. Well, most people aren't doing the same thing you are or exactly identical to how you are. So you might be presenting it and saying, "Hey, here's why I do what I do," or here's the thought process that led me there. And other people might have different of opinion of like, "Hey, maybe here's an easier way, here's a different way," or maybe they haven't thought of it the same way as you have, so they also can pick up something, and maybe you're gonna make their jobs easier. And you kind of the tide raise all boats kind of situation there
Yeah.
of having that communication, talking about that, I think is all super cool and really exciting.
I think one of the hardest things is being asked, and I know this is a fear for people. I've talked to people about this, being asked questions about it. Like the fear is like, hey, I'm pretty new at this. I'm sharing what I've learned. It's like, but if somebody asks me a question, I just back him up. I said, "Look, there's nothing wrong with saying I don't know. I'd
Mhm.
rather have somebody like I don't know." I love getting those questions where I say, "That's a great question. I don't know. Let me go find out." Or there might be somebody in the audience that says, "Oh, no, I've experienced that as well. Here's what I did that's differently from what Christian's showing on this." I'm like, "Oh, that's fantastic. Next time I give that presentation or variation on it, you better believe it has that included."
For sure. I think it's also the effect of, like, sometimes when you're on stage or you're talking, it looks like you have an air of authority, and sometimes it's like, I'm just doing what works. So, like, it may work in my specific case. It might not be the suggested way or the right way. It's
Yeah,
just a way. So that's another reason, like, sometimes when I say I don't know, or like, here's what my thought process is, or here's what I would do. Not saying because like I don't believe in it, but just saying like, hey, there might be a better way. It's just what happened to work for me in the time that I was doing it. Because somebody in the crowd, to your point, might be like, "Oh yeah, that's a way to do that." But like, here's a better way that saves you time, saves you money, saves you complexity. Like
right.
some other reason why, hey, maybe that's not the best approach, and it
Well,
leaves
there's
the door open.
that's part of the problem with doing like AMAs, the whole ask me anything model is like you're
Mhm.
then limited to the scope of whoever the experts are that are participating in that. It doesn't mean that they know every possible answer. They're answering the question based on their background. And so that's why, and again, this is feedback for people out there who have left nasty grams on videos, AMA videos that I've produced, where people approach it the wrong way. And it's like, you completely missed this. And like an angry voice, comment things that are out there. I've even gotten from a couple MVPs that like angry. I'm just like, hey, time out, same side. Like we're
Yeah.
trying. It's like what you're adding to it does not change whether what we said was correct or not. That's something else that we didn't cover. Let's add that in. It's all good. We're all friends here. We're trying to get to the, what are all the answers there. But yeah, that's why I think there's a lot of especially when if you're out playing on in various forums, out on tech community, for example, that you should make sure that your feedback, your input is constructive,
Mhm.
especially if you want to go down the MVP path, because they do look at those conversations, the tone, and the helpfulness of those, the constructiveness of that feedback.
And I also think people don't always recognize that there is a certain stress of being put on the spot too. Like if
Yeah,
you were to call me up and be like, "Hey Alec, what is your opinion on this super technical topic that may or may not be super, maybe I worked on it a month ago, a year ago, 2 years ago." If you go through my blog and you're like, "Hey, this blog post from 2018, I want to ask you about very in depth," and be like, "I'm
yeah.
just going to go by memory
Yeah.
and be put on the
What's the
spot where."
URL? Yeah, this
Yeah,
just
yeah.
happened to me last week. I'm just like, what was the URL? Which video was that? Did I say that? Let me go back and look at that. Oh, here's the context, how I was
Yeah.
answering that.
But if I'm in your comment section, just like I did it 2 minutes ago, and I'm like, "You're wrong, you're dumb," like, that
Yeah,
doesn't help anybody. Like, I'm working off memory here to your point of like an AMA, like, I have a time frame answering as many questions as possible to the best of my ability. But 1, I may not be like a PhD expert in the category. That's a first given. And then 2, like, you're being put on the spot for an answer that you may or may not be super familiar with right off the top of your head. Like,
yeah.
give people a little bit of grace, but, I
Well,
th
another word of advice too, because this again has happened many times, is like I got a nasty message about something that I wrote. Said this isn't true. This didn't work at all. And I said the article that you just read is 5 years old. Like dates matter. Look at
Yeah.
it. It's like you're right. Like, do I need to take that post down because it's no longer relevant? It's like, well, it is to that version. but we're two versions away from that product. So like look at the dates, understand that's why I don't know if you do this like when I present on something. I mean, I really try to steer clear of talking about licensing. Like, what do
Mhm.
you need? What are the caveats? And it's such an important part of that. People say it looks different. I'm like, yeah, there's 20 flavors of that product depending on the licensing that you have. So here's the caveat for this. So I try to do that, but then you have to look at the date, the version, a lot of different factors to why that didn't work. I like fun stuff is when people looking at it, it looks different for me. It's like, okay, what's your computer? Well, I'm on a Mac. Well, there you go.
Yeah. I also think like one I've been talking to people about that's been kind of hard is Copilot. It used to be called Copilot Enterprise or Copilot Chat Enterprise. Uh, that's gone through a whole rebranding, but the general user, unless you're in that program or have that license turned on, you can't really show it. And then when you're in like the workplace search screen, like it's all proprietary data. So
Right.
it's like I can't show you what this looks like exactly, but like we can talk conceptually of like, hey, you can go search anything in Office 365, like emails, uh, documents, all that sort of fun stuff. And it's like one of those things of like, well, mine doesn't look like that. It's like, yeah, it won't until you turn it on and pay for the feature.
Right.
I'm just trying to conceptually tell you. And it's like, I can't show you this client's one because it has all their proprietary data in it. So,
Yeah.
like, I can show you screenshots from Microsoft's website of like, it looks similar to this. Cause, like, again, not all of their screenshots and all their documentation are 100% up to date. But yeah, it's one of those things that's kind of fun where I'll try to call that out or call out versioning. Um, One thing I've found somewhat frustrating as of late is I was doing some work with semantic kernel and they don't call out any sort of versions or even the NuGet specifically. And the one that writer pulls in as like the first recommended one is the wrong one.
Hmm.
So I think it was the semantic kernel memory package. There's semantic kernel memory and semantic kernel memory core. The memory package is the one you want. And I literally Googled my error, and the first thing was a GitHub issue where somebody was like, yeah, you pulled in the core package. You probably want just the base package. But it's like their walkthrough doesn't specifically say like which one to do. So like I get people's frustration because I was there,
Yeah.
but also I if you're getting out of date, like do people expect you to go through and keep all of your stuff 100%? That you're playing a fool's errand at that point if you put out enough content because you're just going to
Right.
eventually get to the point where you only have free time to update the 10 things you have published on the internet.
Right. Well, that's why I mean, we've even talked about this for right. So I do the AMA videos with a small group of people. There's about 15, 20 of us that do these.
Mhm.
And we've talked about putting a disclaimer at the beginning of to help you. Honestly, I don't think anybody would watch the little disclaimer that was flashed on the screen to say like look at the version, look at the date
Mhm.
of the video of the blog post, like look at all these factors, and then here's our answer based on our knowledge where we probably missed something anyway. But
Yeah.
you know, uh, and so yeah, it is a fool's errand to try and do that, and so that's why you tell people you have to go and do your homework. But the other point you made is that the fact something else that's fairly common. We also say that like the SharePoint uh, uh, community grew so quickly because the documentation was terrible, or there was no documentation. So it relied on us to help each other to build
Mhm.
up this content. And this is I was at Microsoft early on in the SharePoint days, and we knew it like we didn't have the staff, we didn't have the people to go and do a
Yeah.
lot of it. We were finding those errors, and so we relied on the community. And Microsoft is doing a much better job with documentation now, but you still find examples like this where it's not exactly the same. It's like if I can relate it to Harry Potter, folks, to the what was it no, now of course I just dropped Harry Potter and I forget the title of the book, but the what's the one that was about Snape, the like the sixth book or whatever. Um, the Dark Prince thing, whatever he called himself. Anyway, the point was it was Snape's spell book, and and Hermione was following along the exact spell, the potion recipe, and yet the handwritten notes in Harry's book were like, "No, don't cut this, the whatever it is, seed, smash it, and then you're able to get the juice out." Whatever. So my point was I was trying to nerd out. I've wrecked it completely, but that's why I love that the fact that there's a blog post or a YouTube video for any walkthrough, and I will go to those. If I have detailed instructions on how to go and build something, do something, I will
Mhm.
go watch a bunch of videos or read a bunch of blog posts first where they say, look, they got this wrong. That's the wrong package. There's two steps that are missing from this. If you're brand new to this, you need to go do this other thing before you even start this thing. Like all of that that's left out of the official documentation you get from the community. And that's why I love the fact that there's so much content out there from people with different perspectives, coming from different directions, and you know, things that you know, sharing information that Microsoft forgets to add into their documentation because it's usually a something that's new. There's this first small step. Oh, we've got you. Then the second step is this massive tall step before there's little steps incremental again.
Yeah. Well, it's also the curse of knowledge too, right? Like if you're the engineer that built this core system and you know it super intricately, it's also hard to dumb something down, for lack of a better term, to like, hey, you're new and never seen my product before. How do I talk to somebody who's never done that? Like you'd be like, who knows what you're taking for granted, what you're just assuming. One thing is the funny. There's this clip all the time of for technical writing of like how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and like people will be like, just like insert the knife, and they show like clips of people doing it, like they put the
Yeah,
knife in backwards, and
yeah.
then they're like that kind of thing.
If
So
you've
there's
not
like a
ever seen those videos, I love it when it's somebody doing it in front of small kids that are like, "No, wait," you know,
yeah. They're like, what do you do? Why are you doing that? It's like
following
because
the instructions. Yeah.
right. So it's there's a little bit of that going on too. Whereas if you crowdsource it or get more eyes on it, it'd be like, yeah, I was that new person. Here's the dumb things I did that you're probably going to want to try. Here's why you should or should not do them. And then here's where I point back to the real documentation, to your point of like, don't do that thing in the recipe. You want to do it like this. Like, but they left that spot out because the person building the first recipe was like, oh, obviously you'd know to do that thing, right? Like, you're like, no, but there are some things that people might obviously know. And some of that stuff you don't get until you get, other people to look at it and start building it and playing with it to be like, oh, yeah, I guess that wasn't super obvious. But to all of us who are in the know, maybe it was. So,
Well,
y-
there's the other factor, Alec, is that again, going back to the wizarding world for knowledge for wisdom on this, is that there are people who are inherently magicians, and there are muggles as well. And it's fun just to if you self acknowledge your muggleness, then that's okay too. And that's why we will rely on the experts. Sorry, I'm trying to bring it all back around to that, but it
for
doesn't
sure.
always work. It often doesn't work, but yeah. Hey, Alec, I do like to ask every time though of like origin story for becoming MVP. So you've been MVP for like over like a year and a half now, couple
Yeah.
years.
I think we're going on. This will be my second renewal cycle. So
Okay,
around 3 ish years
all right,
ish.
almost 3 years. So what? Yeah. So how did you hear about the program? Enter in the program. What was that journey like?
Yeah, so I was actually doing some stuff with infrastructure as code, and I was actually fresh out of college, uh, not super familiar with Azure, more of an AWS guy. Was told, hey, we got dropped into a client consulting wise, told the infrastructure, all that was ready to go. We get there. All it was a pipeline in Azure DevOps that just showed green every time you pushed. It basically asserted true was true and then like didn't do anything else. So I volunteered to build the infrastructure as a fresh college grad and start doing some of their security and authentication and authorization without really knowing the best practices per se. Like I knew textbook, and one of the guys I knew who was like our account manager knew Javier Lozano, the guy who started .NET Conf and Microsoft MVP. So we went and had coffee of like, hey, here's kind of how I'm thinking of doing authentication authorization. This was when the ADOL and MSOL transition was happening, where they basically said don't use ADOL anymore on front ends, but MSOL is also not production ready. So you had a little bit of fun messaging from Microsoft there. So I ran by the strategies with him, kind of kept in contact as far as like kind of a mentorship. I started a user group or revived the Iowa Microsoft Azure user group, and now we're fully virtual for the most part. We try to do a once or twice a year in person event. So we span multiple states to try to keep that community and that group growing. And just as a part of that, speaking at it occasionally, speaking at other events, I eventually got nominated. And yeah, it's kind of been keeping up with user groups ever since then. It wasn't necessarily, it was one of those things where it was like a pie in the sky. Like if this happens, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But it wasn't necessarily the goal, right? Like I liked when I didn't know who to ask for help on a certain thing in Azure, like somebody knew somebody who's willing to help me. So I like to try to be that resource for other people and kind of pay back, the handful of people that when I was a dumb college graduate, like didn't know anything, who took the time to be like, yeah, okay, here's how you can actually help and, expedite my career essentially.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I often tell people, it's like, look, even if you never become an MVP, I mean, there's value in participating in the community of helping other people or sharing knowledge. You'll learn more, you'll make connections, you'll have people to call when you get stymied by a technical issue, kind of all those things.
Mhm.
Um, and so there's value, there's benefit there, and there's benefit for companies to encourage their folks to participate in the community, in the user groups, and other things. So, having sat now, this is my second, third. If I go back to pre Microsoft community, I was on the board of user groups back in the early 2000s in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I worked with Hewlett Packard. I ran a couple of user groups. Way back then. But I was with the SharePoint community in the Seattle area. Now it's been 8 years here in Utah as part on the board for the community here and doing events and a bunch of other
Mhm.
stuff. And I've found clients, I've found consulting work, I have friendships, and it's just fun to get together with these people and new people coming in and people that disappear for years and we harass and they never respond to us and then they block us, kind of all of those experiences, but we have a lot of fun. And again, even if I'd never become an MVP, I'd still be participating in those activities. So it's worth it, people. Go participate in your local community. And if there's not one, start one and you'll get friends.
For sure. And then I even think like just building your personal network is super valuable, especially when it's a tumultuous time in tech or whatnot. Like uh, the co-host of my podcast, Brian Gorman, who's an MVP, talks about all the time, like all the best jobs he's ever had were jobs that he didn't go to a job board. It was a buddy or a friend being like,
Reach
hey,
out.
you do
Yeah.
great here.
Yep.
Or hey, you should go talk to so and so because they need somebody who, does what you do. And I think you don't get those interactions just by posting on LinkedIn or
Yeah.
potentially just like plugging people or other things. Like you got to go out and meet people, make these connections, and uh, that way when it's like, oh hey, I posted on LinkedIn, they'll be like, man, I really like that Alec guy. If he needs a job, like I think he'd be great at our company. I'm gonna go put a word in for him, or that kind of thing.
Yeah. No, that is the way to do it. Like I've been independent for years, have never done any kind of paid advertising, real marketing. I do, yeah, I do marketing. I give advice to others, but have not done it myself, and it's been through relationships, through community for that. So, but yeah, it's there's value no matter what. You can have selfish intentions for participating in community, but you
Mhm.
really do get out what you put into it.
For sure, 100%.
Well, Alec, I always like final question here, but people want to get in touch with you. You want to find you. Like, where are you most active in social? Where can people find you?
Yeah, I post on LinkedIn a lot, so I think it's LinkedIn's URL slash Alec13355 is my handle there. Um, I post about my podcast, my blogs, all that. We actually just started a Discord,
Oh,
so
Yep.
hoping to get more people into there. We have, I think, 3 MVPs for every 1 normal user right now. So, if you wanna join and need help, feel free, to check out my socials there. We post about it, and yeah, say
I will, of
message me on
course,
LinkedIn.
I'll grab all those links. I'll have it in the blog post and out in YouTube for that. So if you want to reach out and connect with Alec, and I always tell people, it's like, look, never be shy about reaching out to an MVP, because we are some of the most let's say the connected people that we're here because we are social. So don't be shy. If you've read something, seen us somewhere, reach out, connect with us. I always say with LinkedIn, attach a note, like say, hey, I saw your blog, or I saw this post, or I just joined your Discord discussion, wanted to connect with you here. Put something there to connect the two of us.
Y
um, but otherwise, if it's not obvious, if I see somebody who reaches out to me on LinkedIn and there's no note, and they're like an operations person in a bread factory, I'm like, why wouldn't I get to connect with this person? I have no idea who they are. Doesn't look like they'd be a relevant connection. I might not. But yeah.
Yeah, some notes are great. I can't tell you the amount of people I get trying to sell me stuff on LinkedIn, even though I don't have a title that would
Yeah.
indicate that I
Yeah.
have money
What?
to spend,
That's
but
crazy. That never happens. Wow.
so yeah, if you just drop me like why you want to connect or anything, like I don't mind. I generally accept most of them, but then yeah, I'm quick to unfollow and block people potentially of hey, if you
They're
just want me
scam.
to buy something,
Yeah.
I don't have any money. And then they're like, yeah, I don't really want to be your friend anymore. Like, okay, cool. Glad we got to that.
Yeah. And then they come back 6 months later and want a connection through somebody else and be like,
Yeah. It's like,
no.
I remember your company.
Yeah. Well, Alec, really, really great meeting you, and hopefully see you in March at the summit. Maybe.
Yep. I'll be there.
I know it's going to be big and spread out, and thousands of people converging on Redmond, but it could happen. We could
Yeah.
cross paths.
We can make a
So
point to make that happen.
we'll have to do a selfie at some point. I think I'll be, over in the Microsoft the Convention Center for a big part of that. Wherever their big, MVP Summit signage is, where there's a
Mhm.
good photo op, I'll be there greeting people a lot. So
Yeah, so you can do that and point to your
yeah,
name on the board.
of course, of course, yeah, yeah. That's where all the best stickers usually are too on day one.
For sure. I've never been to MVP Summit, so it'll be my first
Oh,
time.
okay. Well, there you go. I could tell you more stories of the old versions of MVP Summit, but I don't want to. It's like eating too much candy and then coming up on Halloween and then not being interested in eating candy. Like you don't want to hear the old stories
Right.
of the excess, the budget that was there for Microsoft for it, which no longer exists. But anyway, you're gonna love it. It's gonna be fantastic. So,
Yeah. Look forward to it.
all right, we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.